the ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to General Stein, we will ask you for a question, a written response. What I'd like for you to submit to the committee is, in your preparation for the lawsuit on the marketing, where did most teens learn about e-cigarettes and become drawn to them? I would like to know if it was through friends, the vape store, online, but you can submit that in writing since we have audio issues.
I'll take care of this.
Ms. Fox Johnson, to you, the filter bubble. This is something we had legislation on last year dealing with the filter bubble. Chairman Blumenthal and I both sponsored the Transparency Act, which would require big tech companies to give consumers the option to see content outside of that curated bubble. We know from the American Academy of Pediatrics that this filter bubble is particularly dangerous for children. So I'd love for you to talk about the filter bubble for just a second, why kids need to see something that is outside of their curated bubble, and if you think that parents, and since I'm a grandparents have the tools that they need to keep kids from harmful algorithms and tailored ads.
Sure. Thank you, Senator Blackburn, and thank you for your bipartisan leadership on this issue. I was excited to see so many co-authors of the Filter Bubble Act are on this subcommittee. Think secret algorithms determining what content and advertising children see and what filters they'll be placed in are a huge problem. This is happening unbeknownst to kids. It's happening unbeknownst to parents. In all other aspects of our children's lives, we encourage them to try new things, to learn about different cultures, to learn about different experiences, figure out what they like. We try not to label and limit them and sort of predetermine what their reality will be. But that's exactly what a filter bubble does. I think it's excellent to have more transparency and to ensure that there are unfiltered options. And ideally, companies would take it upon themselves to offer particularly vulnerable young users an unfiltered experience by default. You wanted to know about parental controls with respect to advertising or algorithms. Right now, there really aren't that many parental controls with respect to advertising or algorithms. You can try to keep your kid from seeing certain, inappropriate content or websites. But if you want to block them from seeing ads, you just have to stop them from looking at devices or sites and services in the first place. If you turn on too many ad blockers, which are not parental controls, just general ad blockers, oftentimes these sites and services won't work. So this is not something that parents or grandparents can take into their own hands right now.
When we look, and you mentioned the settlement that that YouTube paid to the FTC, and for collecting data on children without the parents' consent, and the way YouTube shows ads to little kids, to me, this is something that is disgusting. And I would love to hear from you what policies you think Congress should move forward with in protecting children, and then likewise when it comes to COPPA, which needs to be reviewed and rewritten, what are insertions or changes that could be made there? And Commissioner Olhausen, I know that you will send this one to you in writing, what you think we should do in revisiting COPPA and updating that. But go ahead, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Senator Blackburn. So yes, YouTube settled with the FTC because it was collecting information from watchers of child nursery rhyme and other child-directed content videos and using that information to serve up behaviorally targeted advertisements to children and sort of determine what future content might be attractive and increase profits that way. This settlement highlighted a lot of ways that we could improve the landscape for kids' privacy. First, for years, YouTube was able to say, no, we don't have actual knowledge that these are children watching these videos. So one thing to do is to make very clear that COPPA covers all sites and services that children are using and that we don't need to have too narrow a standard and companies can't turn a blind eye to kids. We should also improve privacy by protecting teenagers, especially young teenagers. Another thing Congress could do is confirm what the FTC has decided in its current rule, that personal information needs to be defined broadly and include persistent identifiers. This was not something that was considered personal information back in the 90s when COPPA was passed, but most modern privacy proposals do consider it now. We also need stronger enforcement and real penalties. State attorney generals should be able to get penalties just like the FTC can when they're enforcing COPPA, and there should be minimum penalties. We need penalties that are sufficient to deter bad actors so they don't profit and see this as a cost of doing business or a slap on the wrist. We also need to give the FTC more resources. Common Sense and other advocates have asked for a 50% boost in resources. They're trying to keep up, but they do struggle when faced with big tech.
Excellent. That is helpful. I am over my time. I would like to hear from you. You can submit this in writing. You mentioned the ads that give you tokens for games, things of that nature. And as we look at the entertainment software, I'd love to know who has engaged in that. And Mr. Chairman, with that, I'll yield back.
Thanks so much, Senator Blackburn. Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Johnson, I'd like to start with you if possible. I've long been concerned about how various companies operating online